welcome to the course Sociology of India, Part 2. This is the intro to the course. It has been designed to introduce the students to the history and vastness of the country, to the plurality of the cultures, diversities in caste, tribe, region, language, ethnicity, and other categorizations among the people of India. And it's meant to be a journey that covers all the wide ranges of groups and populations of India and unveils the rich heritage of the civilization of its people. So, without further ado, let's get into the details of the course. Here are the objectives of the course. To understand the sociological idea of India, the way you imagine India as a country, a place with certain features and certain people, your homeland, a nation, are all a part of it. But this is specifically about the sociological imagination of the country. To analyze socio-economic and political conditions of the prevailing society. So, what went on about during that nascent stage, which gave rise to such imagination and which framed the ideas of the country? To describe significant social movements in India, the movements that came about from different groups, the peasants, the Dalits, the women, the urban and the rural working class, the consequences and the effects of the movement. To examine ideologies of state and society, how India formed as a nation, as a state, what constituted its society, how different communities and groups built a cohesive society. To assess the contribution of Indian ideologues to sociological theories, what people like Mahatma Gandhi, Nehru, Ambedkar, and others contributed to the image of India, and in the end, to contrast and compare the various concepts discussed. This is the syllabus. There are 3 blocks with various units in each. Block 1 is Ideas of India. Block 2 is Resistance, Mobilization, and Change. And Block 3 is State and Society, Contesting Ideologies. Let us look at them in detail. Block 1, Ideas of India. So this deals with the ideas reflected in the traditional pluralistic foundations of India and in its people, besides the historical, cultural, philosophical, and political imaginations. We're also going to look at the democratic practices, socialist, republic, and secularist ideas that were formed as a part of the foundations, and also to assess the imagination of India by Mahatma Gandhi, Nehru, Ambedkar, along with the others, and the ideological and ethnographic imaginations. What it meant to the different people living in the country, how they viewed it, what the socio-economic political landscape was. जो वहां बसते थे उनके लिए क्या इमेज था, उन लोग क्या सोचते थे कंट्री के बारे में, and how that forms sociology. So unit 1 is multiple images, which explains the traditional facets of the plural Indian society and its legacies, of the unity and the diversity, to elucidate the syncretic tradition in different religions, spiritualism, to develop a critique of the colonial description of the Indian society. Colonialists ने, Britishers ने Indian society को एक अलग image दिया था, वो उनका description था, that they used to justify the atrocities on the Indian people. So how do the Indian ideologues and the Indian leaders viewed it in contrast to the Western imagination, in contrast to the colonial description? And we will also underline Hegel's, Marx's, Weber's, and Twain's visions of India and elaborate on Tagore's, Gandhi's, Nehru's, and others' perspectives of India, examining the society as enshrined in the Indian constitutions. Unit 2, Gandhi and Ambedkar, talks about and delineates the careers and the political thought of both of them, Gandhi's satyagraha and non-violence, the role of both the leaders in national movements, their visions on marginalization and social inclusion, and their socio-political philosophies. Unit 3, ideological images. This defines the concept of ideology. It gives a description of the ideological image of society and specifically image of the Indian society, outlining the concepts of nationalism, pluralism, diversity, the Indian civilization. And it also discusses change and modernization in India, identifying the forces that were responsible for continuity of tradition along with modernization. Changes आए थे country में, development हुआ था, modern ideas evolved, but the basis of all the ideas, the basic beliefs, principles, and practices of the Indian tradition remained along with the modernization. So that is also something that will be discussed in the unit. Unit 4, ethnographic images of India, will define the image and the concept of what ethnographic images, discuss the ethnographic image of the Indian society, give us the parameters of the Indian society's image, outline the portrayal of the diversity in Indian villages, in castes, in tribes, in regions, and also identifying the features of the little and great traditions of India. Unit 5, Constitutional Foundations, examines India as a constitutional democracy and narrates the history of how the constitution was made and explains the various aspects of the constitution that was adopted by independent India, and also the fundamental rights, duties, directives of state policy, universal adult suffrage, etc., and how the constitution has emboldened the country and solidified the foundations. Block 2, resistance, mobilization, and change. This is going to cover the dynamics of mobility and changes that transpired in the country. क्या factors थे जिसकी वजह से ये changes आए? The dissent that arose in these groups and the mobility that grew in the population. So we are going to emphasize on the study of social mobility, the contribution, conceptualization, channelization of change, the kinds of movements that occurred, their stories of success and failure, the consequences of these movements, how urban growth, industrialization, globalization, development, liberalization have brought about drastic transformations, giving rise to different movements. These movements had changed rural urban institutions of caste, family, different units of population in all the corners of India. So Unit 6 will outline the processes and factors that influence mobility in caste, to describe the nature of mobility in class and the factors influencing in both, and highlight how that brought changes in the country. Unit 7, ethnic movements in India, will help us understand the meaning of ethnicity in India, identify the issues and problems involved in the ethnic movement. There will be different approaches to ethnic movements that will be discussed, and we will also analyze the major ethnic movements that happen. Unit 8, peasant movements in India. We'll talk about the different groups of peasants and the peasant movements, classification of these movements in phases. So all of these different movements that happen, ethnic हो, peasant हो, dalit या women, उसमें phases रहते थे. There will be groups that will be the same in different movements, लेकिन हर movement का एक phase होता है, different stages होते हैं. वो अलग stages से pass on होता है, हर stage में अलग demand होता है, अलग challenges होते हैं. So classification of the movement in phases, and also the emergence of radical peasant movements in India. Unit 9, Dalit movements in India, understanding the meaning of Dalit in India, to identify the issues and problems that involve the Dalits, to know the phases in which the movements passed, and analyze Dalits, their role in the organization and the electoral politics of the country. Unit 10, women's movements in India, describing women's movements as an important variant of all the social movements, and to explain how women's issues are raised in the reform movements in the 19th and the early 20th centuries, to state and describe the basic aspects of women's organizations, issues, their participation in the freedom movements, and also to describe the changing facets of the movements. Alag-alag demands hote the. There'll be different struggles that they're going through. And so post-independence, independence, pre-independence, her movement mein facets will be changing. So this is also something that we're going to look at. Unit 11, working class movements in India, to explain the process of the emergence of urban working class. And we will also describe the urban occupational structure, analyze the features of urban working class, and we will discuss the concept, growth, and characteristics of urban labor movement. Unit 3, Block 3, State and Society, contesting ideologies. Ideologies of communalism, secularism, nationalism, among others, in the changing context of state and society. Post-independence period in India had witnessed a wide range of revolutionary movements and challenges in the societies, like the ones that we had mentioned in Block 2. So this Block 3 will talk about the movements that pushed, not the movements, but how these movements had pushed forward the emerging and the fresh concepts of state and society, and the contestation between different ideologies, as the partition and division of two countries had become a threat to the majority and minority relations within the framework of secularism. So this theme will be running through all the units in this block. How different populations in India, based on their identities of religion, language, of race, ethnicity, etc., navigated through all of this. So Unit 12, we'll describe fundamentalism, explain communalism with the help of relevant examples, identify what communalism is and its characteristics, clarify what secularism actually is and what it means in India and how it works. Unit 13, secularism, understanding the meaning and the concept of secularism will be something that we'll talk about. Discussing the social context and historical background of secularism, we will also explain the nature and scope of secularism, understand the problems that come with it. Unit 14, nationalism, we will develop an understanding of nation and nationality and explain the foundations of nationalism in India, in the subcontinent, which is a melting pot of so many cultures and so many diverse groups of people, to describe the secular facets in Indian nationalism and the contradictions in it. And we will also elucidate the dynamics of coexistence with the diverse complementarities in Indian nationalism. So these were the blocks, the three blocks and the units that are a part of the course. So that is all for today. These will be the ideas and concepts we will be discussing soon in detail. And I look forward to the opportunity that we will have to learn and grow together in this course. Thank you all.